Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tension is once again reaching a boiling point in the Middle East, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has issued a grave warning to Iran, hinting that Israel may strike again and this time harder than ever before. The world is watching closely, fearing that this could ignite a regional war with consequences beyond imagination. According to multiple intelligence and diplomatic sources, Netanyahu, whose message was not just political rhetoric, it was a strategic signal to Tehran following a series of escalating clashes, cyber attacks, and drone strikes exchanged between Israel and Iran-backed militias. Over the last few weeks, Israel has reportedly carried out covert operations inside Syria, Iraq, and even deep into Iranian territory, targeting weapons facilities believed to be supplying Hezbollah and the Houthis. But now the tone has shifted. In a televised speech from Tel Aviv, Netanyahu declared, "Israel will not hesitate to act against anyone who threatens our existence. We have shown restraint, but we will not be silent." Those words sent shockwaves across the region. Iran's government immediately responded, accusing Israel of provoking a wider conflict. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard issued its own statement, warning that any Israeli attack would be met with a crushing response, not just from Iran, but from what they called the axis of resistance: Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen. Behind the scenes, international intelligence agencies are now scrambling to assess whether Netanyahu, whose warning was a bluff, or if Israel is preparing for a new wave of airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure. Recent satellite imagery analyzed by Western experts shows increased activity at several Israeli air bases, including the Nevatim and Hatzerim bases, both home to advanced F-35 fighter jets capable of striking long-range targets. Fuel supplies, missile stockpiles, and surveillance operations appear to be ramping up. At the same time, Israeli naval forces in the Red Sea and Mediterranean have reportedly been placed on heightened alert, signaling that Tel Aviv might be readying a preemptive strike. Analysts believe this could come in response to Iran's growing presence in Syria and its continued support for armed groups targeting Israeli assets. Inside Israel, the mood is tense. Citizens have begun stockpiling supplies, and military reservists are reportedly being called up in small numbers. The government has not officially announced mobilization, but subtle movements within the defense establishment suggest preparation for a significant escalation. In Tehran, the message was clear: they are ready. Iranian state television broadcast images of massive missile parades, including the unveiling of new long-range ballistic weapons, claiming they could reach every corner of occupied Palestine. Iranian leaders say that if Israel dares to strike, no safe zone will remain. The international community is deeply concerned. Washington, London, and Moscow have all issued statements urging restraint, while the United Nations Security Council called an emergency meeting to discuss the rising danger of direct confrontation between Israel and Iran. What makes this situation particularly volatile is that it follows months of smaller, indirect warfare cyber attacks, drone interceptions, and shadow operations. Both nations have been testing each other's limits. Israel has been accused of sabotaging Iranian nuclear facilities, while Iran has retaliated with cyber attacks targeting Israeli infrastructure, including power grids and water systems. In recent weeks, Israel also struck multiple Iranian supply convoys moving through Syria, reportedly destroying advanced missile shipments destined for Hezbollah. But Iran's patience, according to many observers, is running thin. Tehran's new strategy appears to be deterrence through coalition strength, bringing its allied groups closer together for a unified response. This is exactly what Netanyahu, whose inner circle fears most, a multi-front war. With Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, militias in Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen, Israel's security apparatus is stretched thinner than ever. Each of these fronts is capable of launching drones, rockets, or cyber attacks that could overwhelm Israel's defenses. And that's why Netanyahu's warning carries a double meaning, not just a threat to Iran, but also a signal to Israel's enemies across the region. In his address, he said, "We know our enemies are watching. Let them watch closely. If they move against us, they will face the full power of the Israeli Defense Forces. For many in Israel, this speech felt like a declaration that the era of limited operations might be ending. Netanyahu, who has been under intense domestic pressure to project strength amid ongoing political unrest and criticism over his handling of previous conflicts. Military analysts believe he might use this new confrontation as an opportunity to reassert control and unify the nation under a common threat. Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence officials are closely monitoring Iranian movement. Reports suggest Iran has increased readiness at several air bases and missile launch sites. Naval activity in the Persian Gulf has also intensified, with Iranian warships and fast attack boats shadowing Western vessels. Some experts believe the trigger for Israel's next move could come if Iran's nuclear program crosses a new threshold. There are indications that Tehran is accelerating uranium enrichment, possibly nearing weapons-grade levels. For Israel, this represents an existential red line. Netanyahu, who has repeatedly stated that Israel will never allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons, even if it means unilateral military action. Adding to the tension, Hezbollah has reportedly positioned additional rocket units along Israel's northern border. Israeli drones have been patrolling the skies non-stop, watching for any sign of attack. In Gaza, Hamas officials have announced that they are on full readiness should Israel strike Iran, suggesting that any Israeli action could spark a coordinated regional retaliation. Internationally, reactions are mixed. The U.S. has reaffirmed its support for Israel's right to self-defense but privately urged restraint. Russia, on the other hand, has warned Israel that any attack on Iran could destabilize the global energy market. China has called for de-escalation, urging both sides to return to diplomacy, but neither Tehran nor Tel Aviv seems interested in compromise right now. For many analysts, this growing confrontation marks a new and dangerous phase in Middle Eastern geopolitics, one where diplomacy has been replaced by deterrence through force. Both sides believe they cannot afford to appear weak. Israel fears encirclement, while Iran believes it must assert itself as the dominant regional power. Behind closed doors, however, Israeli intelligence officials are worried. They know Iran's military capabilities have evolved. The Iranian arsenal now includes cruise missiles, hypersonic systems, and advanced drones, many of which have already been used effectively by Tehran's allies in regional conflict. And while Israel's air force remains one of the most advanced in the world, the Iron Dome and David's Sling systems are not infallible. Recent conflicts have exposed vulnerabilities when facing large-scale or long-range barrages. If Iran were to coordinate attacks with Hezbollah and the Houthis simultaneously, the defense systems could become overwhelmed. As the tension builds, global markets are reacting. Oil prices have surged, and defense stocks across the U.S. and Europe are climbing rapidly. The mere possibility of war between Israel and Iran is enough to unsettle investors and governments alike. But perhaps the most telling reaction comes from within Israel itself. Former military officials and intelligence officers are warning that a preemptive strike on Iran could spark uncontrollable chaos. They argue that Israel's deterrence should come through alliances, not unilateral aggression. However, Netanyahu and his supporters believe waiting too long could allow Iran to achieve nuclear capability, a nightmare scenario for Israeli security. Meanwhile, inside Iran, state television is filled with images of defiance soldiers saluting under missile banners, crowds chanting against Israel, and political leaders vowing revenge for any act of aggression. Tehran's message is clear. If attacked, Iran will respond everywhere, from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea, from Lebanon to Gaza. This delicate balance between deterrence and destruction is now being tested in real time. Diplomats describe the current situation as a few missteps away from disaster. One wrong move, one misunderstood signal, and the region could erupt in all-out war. As night falls over the Middle East, both militaries remain on alert. Fighter jets roar across Israeli skies, while radar stations in Iran scan the horizon for incoming threats. The world holds its breath, knowing that one airstrike could change the course of history. Netanyahu's warning to Iran may have been intended as a deterrent, but it could just as easily become the spark that ignites the next major conflict in the region. What happens next will depend on choices made in Tel Aviv and Tehran, choices that could shape not only the Middle East, but the future of global security. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.